So export subsidies are a particularly controversial policy in international trade. Now, export subsidies involve a government paying a firm if it sells a product abroad. You don't get paid if you sell it in the domestic market. You only get paid if you sell it abroad. Now, we've already done the small country export subsidy story, and I would urge you to take a look at that before you follow this video, because here we're going to be talking about this in the context of a large country. So this is a large country that can affect the world price of its export good by any kind of domestic activity. So let's get first a sense of what direction the various prices go. If you have a subsidy, that's going to, on exports, it's going to encourage more exports. I mean, that's why you subsidize. That's going to tend to reduce the world price of the product, because this is a large country. The flood of exports onto the world market tends to drop the world price. So I'm going to do this really starting from that final fact about the world price and work our way backwards. Okay, so we have this initial world price where this distance is the original exports in this country. This is the domestic supply, that's the domestic demand, there's the world price. The subsidy, in the end, will lower the world price down to P1W. Now, how far that world price goes down depends on the elasticities, supply and demand in the world market. Let me set that aside. All I really need to know is that the world price tends to fall. And the way the export subsidy works is that whatever the world price is, the domestic firms will get that world price plus a subsidy payment from the government. And what you have here is that the new domestic price is going to be whatever the new world price is plus the subsidy rate. So this vertical distance, and let's give some numbers here. Let's say that the original price was $100 and the world price fell to $95 and there was a subsidy of $10, then what firms in the domestic market would base their decisions on would be $105, because they're going to get the $95 for the foreigners plus the $10 per unit of exports. So let's extend these lines and do the analysis of the impact. Again, so that's the original world price, that's the new world price. And so what you have, Q1 to Q2 was the original amount of exports. Q2 was produced, Q1 was demanded inside the domestic economy. After you have the subsidy and the world price change, the quantity produced goes up to Q3. The quantity demanded is Q4. And now we have all of these different effects that we need to take into account. We've got gains, we've got losses, and we're going to be doing this from the standpoint of domestic consumers, producers, and the government. So let me put some letters in here. So domestic producers, if we look at the consumer surplus, consumers, if you look at the consumer surplus before the policy and the consumer surplus after the policy's effects have sort of rippled through the economy, you're going to have a loss of AB. That's the difference in the price over to the demand curve. So consumers lose AB. A is the extra cost to consumers that stay in the market and pay the higher price. B are the consumers priced out of the market. Got a standard analysis. Domestic producers gain the difference in the price over to the supply curve. So consumer producers gain A, B, C. Now we have to look at the impact on the government. So here's the new exports and the payments that the government gives out is the new exports multiplied times the subsidy rate. Okay? That's this box. So the total subsidy payment is B, C, D, E, F, G. It's the subsidy rate multiplied times the exports. So the government loses B, C, D, E, F, G. So now we can take a look at the different, the net effects by looking at considering a transfer as having no effect. A's on both sides, B's on both sides, C's on both sides. And what you have is a loss of BD plus EFG. Okay, that's the net loss to the domestic economy by the provision of the export subsidy in this large country case. Now B and D are exactly the same deadweight losses that we got with a small country case. B is the cost of selling to the wrong consumers, foreigners rather than domestic consumers who valued it more. D was the production inefficiency, the increase in production beyond the revenue that the firms received in the international market. So standard deadweight losses from an export subsidy. Now let's think about EFG. EFG is the terms of trade effect. What do I mean by that? That is the losses to the government that are incurred by the drop in the price in the world market from 100 to 95. And that is an extra cost to the government beyond any of the effects that you would have with the small country case. So this is essentially EFG, a transfer from domestic taxpayers to the government to foreigners who are now able to buy this product for a lower price. So that's why, economists sort of joke about this. If you look at this analysis at face value, we shouldn't complain about foreign governments subsidizing their exports because our consumers get a lower price. So that we should write them a thank you note, sort of the old saw. Now, but let's be clear about this. It's not just that consumers get some benefits from this in the foreign market. The price dropping from 100 to 95 means that the producers that are competing in the international market get hurt. And this is where the controversy occurs. And this is why we'll see in a separate video about countervailing duties that governments retain the right to impose a compensating duty, an increase in tariffs, if other countries provide subsidies that lowers the world price and hurts their the industries in the importing country. So, large country export subsidy is really very similar to the small country. What's different is that terms of trade effect, EFG. And we're going to take a look at this video again when we talk about countervailing duties. Okay?